All right, so far we've calculated measures essential tendency. We have calculated our measures of variation, which involved calculating the range and the standard deviation. We're now going to look at representing the data utilizing a histogram, so creating a graph of this. So here is kind of our graph to set up. We have the number of occurrences that shows up on the y-axis. We have the block dimensions that show up on the x-axis. And then here they have some red lines in there, which is going to represent a range for letter D. But what we're going to do is we're going to see is in our data values. So right now, what we're going to end up seeing is that based on our chart here, is it says we're going to shade in one square for each value of the data set. Now doing this in Word, I'm going to show you here, we're going to start looking at some of the data. We really don't have a 0.729 kind of number in there. This really doesn't go down that far. So we got 0.738, this would be 0.737. So we're not going to be able to represent those on our graph because we don't necessarily have the room there for it. But what we can do is we can say insert. I do have a 0.738, so that's my first number that shows up, and I have one of those. So when I go to represent this, I'm going to end up saying insert, and then I'm going to go here to shapes, and I usually use the rectangle shape right here. And since I only have one of those, I'm going to highlight and I'm going to shade over that particular one grid square that goes up to the number 1. The next one would be number 2, number 3, and so on and so forth. So I have one occurrence of that happening. As far as the rest of these, as I go look at my table here, 0.75 is the next one. I have 2 of those. So I'm going to go ahead and find 0.75. I'm going to go through and say insert, shape, rectangle, and I'm going to find the 0.75, go up to 2. Go ahead and calculate, go ahead and show that one in there. I've got 1.71, 1.752, and keep going there. One easy way is I can also just select the shape, Control C or Command C, Command V, and then here, so the next one, and then I can resize the rectangle to go to the next, to my next particular one there. So this one here become really easy because I got one at 0.752. I got one at 0.754, and looking at my data, 0.758, 0.759, so I can continue to kind of go along and kind of put some of those in. There's 0.758, there's 0.759, and then 0.764, which looks like now I'm running out of my on my data. So those values are not really going to happen. Now here they're going to have represented. So for letter D is they're going to say that for our puzzle cube, for these puzzle cubes to fit together correctly, we really need a range of values that would be 0.745 and 0.755 inches. What percentage of your sample blocks would be considered to be unacceptable? What we're going to do is we're going to look at writing an inequality. So in this scenario, if we go through and we end up having a value here, is that we're going to have anything that would be 744 and then anything that would be in between 0.7445, which would end up rounding up to 0.745 in that scenario. So that would be there. And then as I look at my interval, anything between x in that case and then 0.7554 would go through and keep me between. So any number between these two values here, again, we're going to go to 4 decimals, because if we go through and we had a number like here and we went to 3 decimals, this would be 0.745, which would fall within our red line there. And then with this one, anything less than or equal to 0.7554, because if this was 0.7555, that would round it up to 0.756, and then we would be outside of our red kind of area there. So what we're looking for is what kind of class interval or interval would go through and be represented to fall between that range. So there would be what numbers that would fall between that range. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. All right, so this ends the example. This is a real quick introduction to applied statistics, and this example will be very similar to how I want you to complete activity 7.1 and be able to turn that in utilizing the Word doc format. So same skills, same types of things transfer over, and we're able to utilize this to help us do that. So if you have any questions, make sure to message me on Canvas, and that way we can go ahead and get that sorted out.